Hey guys, my name is Nova, and I'm here talking to you today about Steven Spielberg's new movie, The Fabelmans. And if you don't know yet, The Fabelmans just won Toronto International Film Festival's People's Choice Awards, which is a huge deal. I mean, some of the People's Choice Awards have gone on to be nominated for Best Picture or even sometimes win Best Picture. So, what did I think of The Fabelmans? Now, everyone knows that this is Steven Spielberg's most personal project, and arguably it could maybe even be one of his last directorial efforts. I was very hyped for this one, just hearing about the cast, the story behind it, what he was trying to do. I went into this one with a lot of hype. Like when I got tickets for this with my friend, instantly, I thought this was going to be my favorite of the festival. Now I know this movie is going to work for a lot of people. Let's be honest, Spielberg is a crowd pleaser. He's a fan favorite. People love his films because they're always charming. Let's get this straight. The Fabelmans is charming. It's a crowd pleasing, safe, very sweet film, mostly. But unfortunately, there are so many, in my opinion, issues with this film that don't make it deserving of the People's Choice Award, in my opinion. Let's just start with the positives, right off the bat. Gabriel LaBelle is fantastic in his role as young Steven Spielberg, Sammy Fabelman in this movie. He has so much charisma and screen presence, and he's really great. I have no complaints about his performance. Janusz Kaminski brings, again, his signature literally flares to the table. He does a really great job as a cinematographer. There's some really great shots in this film that are going to stand out, and some are going to be timeless. There's a lot of talk about the final shot of this movie. No matter how much I can hype up this final shot for you, when it hits you, it's such an amazing moment in the movie that it almost redeems a lot of the flaws I have when I think about that final shot. I just wish personally in the narrative that final shot it was set up a little bit earlier in the story. Some of my bigger issues with this film is truly how kind of cliche it really is. There's a lot of parts in this film that I feel like I've seen in other films before, in shows before, in other stories before. So I didn't really know much about his life. I knew that there was a little bit of a disparity between his mom and his father. I actually didn't know they divorced. I didn't know anything about that. So the movie really focuses on Spielberg's parents and their divorce, and more specifically, there is so much focus on Spielberg's mother, Mrs. Fabelman, played by Michelle Williams, who gives an over-the-top powerhouse of a performance, which can honestly be a bit too much at times. But I really bring that back down to the writing and the way Spielberg is trying to portray her, because really, again, another big flaw of this film is that there's a really clear agenda with how he's looking at everybody in this film. He's making almost everyone seem like they have flaws, especially his mother. He paints her in a really negative light, very selfish. She's basically the cause of the family's fallout, really, if I want to put it that way. She really made some selfish decisions. To see that was really unfortunate, because he made Sammy really empathetic and almost like an angel. He does nothing wrong. Sammy is just this perfect kid. What really bothers me is that these days a lot of directors are going to be doing these biopics, right? And they really want to tell their story about how they got into filmmaking and the struggles that they faced. But if you really think about it, this film, there was really no struggle for Sammy. When you think about it, he really almost had a really nice privileged lifestyle where he almost fell ass backwards into camera gear time and time again, where a lot of people they don't have those types of opportunities. And the worst thing that happened to him was that his mom cheated on his dad. To me, is almost it didn't happen to you, it happened to your parents, right? So to me, that's a perspective that I almost wouldn't feel like is strong enough to tell a story about. So really, I really have a lot of problems with the narrative overall when it focuses on that, because that's a big chunk of the movie. When you think about it, that's over 90 minutes of the plot is focused on Mrs. Fabelman cheating and how he finds out and all these things, and how it makes him bitter. It wasn't interesting to me, and maybe that makes me cynical, maybe that makes me bitter, but I've seen that story before, and I couldn't empathize with anybody, and it was just maybe that makes me heartless, but it really didn't strike me as an important story. I almost feel like if maybe Spielberg didn't make this, it would have a lot of trouble getting greenlit. That is until we get to the filmmaking aspects, where you have this kid like trying to get all anything possible together to make movies and to make the shots work and to get his friends and family involved, because he had a love for film, and he had a love for film gear and film strips and 8mm and 16mm. These things are super interesting, and they all lead up to a really phenomenal, heartwarming and inspiring arc for filmmakers and film lovers when it focuses on that portion of the story. So I'm really torn, because that's like almost a little bit less than half the movie that I really enjoy, and that I found a lot of charm and whimsy. And again, there's a lot of great shots. There's a particular sequence where he's editing, and he sees something in the footage that shows him, how much is at stake in his family, and that whole sequence felt very refreshing and new and beautiful in the way it was shot and edited. So really big fan of some of the stuff in this film, but a big problem with, I guess, the angle that Sammy is portrayed in, and how his parents and the people around him are portrayed in. You guys might have heard the little infamous thing about the ending, where there's a really big cameo, I guess, near the end of this film that drove the audience here at TIFF crazy. Like there were people who were cheering as if it was like an MCU post-credits scene. It almost felt like Samuel L. Jackson popped in, with a cameo like that made the crowd go wild. Spoiler alert, that cameo is David Lynch. David Lynch is a pretty divisive filmmaker by some standards. A lot of people love his films. Personally, I'm not a huge fan. So he's playing, I think it's John Ford in the film, and like Steven Spielberg that has an interaction with him. And I get that that's supposed to be like this tongue-in-cheek moment, and it's David Lynch's performance is really making it big. To me, that really was like more like fan service, if anything. And I associate Steven Spielberg and David Lynch on like two completely different levels. Like I feel like Spielberg's made some really fantastic films over his filmography and a lot of versatility, and David Lynch, again, he's also made some of the world's most beloved art house films and weird films, and even TV shows, both Twin Peaks, but they feel so different, like in such different worlds to me. So I really wasn't sure what to personally make of that sequence, but the crowd loved it. That's really what matters. And really, when I think about it, the crowd was eating the whole movie up. Maybe I was one of the only ones who had a bad reaction to the film, but a lot of the problems were with the writing. And again, there was like scenes in high school where teenagers were bullying each other, and it really comes from like a lens of like 60-70-year-olds writing scripts where teenagers are speaking dialogue that feels so alien and feels so out of place. And again, maybe I'm super critical, maybe I'm just heartless or cynical. Dialogue is a big thing for me. I've always loved really good dialogue, and dialogue plays a big part in my immersion. I've done some acting, I've done a lot of screenwriting. I have an agent with the Writers Guild of Canada. I have a Western feature on the way. I love good dialogue that feels naturalistic, that feels that doesn't make me cringe ultimately. And there was some of the dialogue here and some of the moments here, especially the high school moments or Michelle Williams moments, that just made me enjoy the film a lot less than a lot of people seem to be. So that's the crowd pleaser, TIFF People's Choice Award, The Fabelmans. The Fabelmans won this year. Belfast won last year. The irony of two directors' biopics winning 2 years in a row. Roma won a few years ago. I feel like there's a trend, right? And I'm not too psyched on this trend, because I don't really like any of those movies as much as most people seem to. Roma was pretty interesting, but Belfast really fell flat. The Fabelmans to me really fell flat. We have Armageddon Time coming out this year. I think there's another one or two coming out next year as well. So we do have more directors' biopics coming out, and I just really hope that their stories, their struggle, the way they fell into film, or the angles that they try to portray in their narratives are more interesting, are more unique, are more engaging than what the Fabelmans and, let's just say, Belfast presented. So again, maybe this is my harsh hot take. The Fabelmans, I don't think it deserved TIFF People's Choice Awards. I think I really would have given that to Triangle of Sadness. That movie is just incredible. But you know, that really says a lot about Toronto audiences. Toronto audiences time and time again have proven and have chosen the most mainstream option to win the TIFF People's Choice Awards. And they're offered a buffet of international films, of art house films, of beautiful independent films. But they always seem to go for the very, very mainstream option. Now, an argument could be made that those mainstream movies have really expensive marketing departments and really wealthy marketing departments who invest a lot into getting those films into TIFF, into getting those films into the bigger screenings, into the bigger theaters. And if you have a bigger theater with a bigger audience, you will eventually have more people voting for the TIFF People's Choice Awards. That's just my conspiracy theory. You can call me a tinfoil hat person if you want, but I just feel like time and time again they've gone with the super mainstream option, the very, very popular option that will be in theaters no matter what in a couple of weeks. And it really disappoints me a little bit, but that's a conversation for another time. My name is Nova. This is my review of Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. I watched it at TIFF 2022. The Toronto International Film Festival is something that I attend every year, and I love it. And I have a couple more reviews for you guys from TIFF. I have All Quiet on the Western Front, and I have Women Talking, Sarah Polley's return to cinema after almost a decade. So we're going to be talking about that soon. Again, this is Nova. Please like and subscribe if you like what you hear. If you want to hear more reviews, if you want to hear my analysis or my story or anything, just interact with me. I'll engage with every single one of these comments. And I know sometimes I'll have some extreme opinions that may alienate you guys, but I'm always open to good discourse about film without attacking each other. And I hope that we can always just discuss film in a healthy way, elevate the whole standard for cinema, really. And that's really my goal. So again, much love to you guys. This is Nova signing out. I love you.